Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. We are set to go. We've been in exec and we're back in public, and that was a pledge, and we have a few more items to do before we get to Dr. Brown, who we always like to hear from. Dr. Brown. We got a big stack of stuff here, Dr. Brown. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I do not forget you, Dr. Brown. So we'll move on to public comment here, period, and I think this is when we want to hear from anyone who happens to be at the meeting tonight that wants to speak here. And Chris, go ahead.
We've got Colby Harrell. Did I get the last name correct?
It's Harold.
Harold? I apologize.
This is right.
Absolutely.
Is that all right? All right. Is it okay if I stand?
Sure. You may stand.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colby Harrell. I'm the new Executive Director of Golden Opportunity. Many of you probably know what GO is. We provide one-on-one academic support and mentorship to 2nd through 8th grade students in the Ithaca City Schools. Our objective is to provide early academic intervention to help students from low-income families achieve and maintain grade-level competency as quickly as possible. The vast majority of our GO tutors are retired teachers with 25 years or more of teaching experience. In early grades, our tutors focus on building skills in core academic subjects such as reading and math. And then in middle grades, our focus shifts towards helping them meet deadlines, organize projects, and manage their time effectively. We drive improved student outcomes by coordinating expanded learning with in-school learning. So the cool thing about the program is our tutors meet with school day teachers at least twice a year to set learning goals for each child, and then they reassess those goals throughout the year, offering a support system that sort of grows as the child moves forward from grade to grade. But perhaps one of the most important things about the program is that our tutors also serve as mentors. They'll often go above and beyond and provide additional enrichment opportunities for the students, whether it's buying tickets to a play or a sporting event, or going to a museum, or sponsoring swimming lessons or music lessons. Our tutors often step in that role. And additionally, they'll many times stay with the same students starting in 2nd grade throughout elementary and sometimes middle school as well. While I'm a new face to the organization, wanted to come and introduce myself. Many of you probably know our founder, Marty Kaminsky, who started the program back in 2005. I'm happy to say that over the past 10 years, we grew from serving 4 students at 2 schools to serving about 70 students at all of the elementary and middle schools in the district. As of tomorrow afternoon, we will officially be up and running at all of the sites this year. Our tutoring year runs until the end of May, so each of our students will meet twice a week for 1 hour each after school. And by the end of the academic year, they'll have received 60 additional hours of enrichment and support from their tutors. So again, my name is Colby Harrell, new executive director. I look forward to meeting many of you in this room, maybe for coffee. If anyone is interested in learning more about what we do, or finding collaborative opportunities, or plugging in, or supporting our work, by all means, let's get together soon. And I appreciate everyone for having me.
Thanks, Colby. Outstanding.
Thank you.
That was all that signed up. Anyone wish to speak that is here? Students in the back just hanging out, anything? You're probably good. Okay. We're good? All right. So we'll move on and to student reps in Ithaca High, and there's another Ithaca High student here. So welcome.
Thank you. So beginning off, we have our annual German exchange program, which is about 25 or so students come from the southern German town of Tuttlingen. They spend 3 days in New York City, at which point they bus up to Ithaca High, where they will spend approximately 3 weeks living with host families, getting to know some American culture, particularly upstate New York, in its most beautiful time. And of course, this is a great amount of work for Frau Dell and the German department to organize this, set this up, all the funding, all the fundraising that's gone into it. Students are going to go to a couple of trips around Ithaca, Cornell, Niagara Falls. They'll go up to Corning. Really great experience for them. And they're going to be leaving November 1st. However, this Thursday, At 4 o'clock in the Ithaca High School Library, there'll be a meet and greet at tea for the incoming German students, and anyone is welcome to stop by, greet the students, and partake of that wonderful experience.
All right, and so I'm briefly going to talk about recent successes in sports recently. This past weekend, women's swimming placed 3rd overall out of 20 teams at the Shen Invite. And the Shen Invite is very prestigious, invitational, and you have to be invited to the meet, and they performed extremely well. They, in addition, several swimmers got state qualifying times, including the Jordan Liu, who does for the team, and Indy Stratton. And the 200 free relay also qualified for the state's event later in November. And so that adds to an already packed state qualifying team. And so as a community, we're all looking forward to seeing what they can do. Additionally, last week tennis won against Corning, and they're currently 2nd place in the Southern Tier Athletic Conference. And women's soccer also won against Corning. And so as the fall season progresses, we're looking forward to some of the sexual meets and seeing how IHS can perform in some of those, and we have high expectations for our athletes. Additionally, this week, we started off strong with Spirit Day. Today we had Twin Day, and walking down the halls, you could see students dressing up as their friends in matching outfits, demonstrating their pride of IHS. Additionally, we have Dress Like a Staff Member tomorrow and Red and Gold on Friday. So those will be exceptional times to see some of our student pride. And then on Friday, after school, during school, but after our shortened periods, we have the pep rally, which led by Mr. Melander and the pep band, we demonstrate additionally our pride. And last year it was a huge success. It included activities such as karaoke contests and class activities, and so I think we'll all look forward to the end of the week on Friday.
After the exciting Spirit Week, we're wrapping up homecoming with a couple of major events, namely homecoming dance and the football game. But Friday afternoon we have a new event. The junior class is hosting a chicken barbecue at Cass Park, and there'll be shuttles to Cass Park directly after school for those attending, and for $8 I think, and a contract. Anyone can go to Cass Park. They can get dinner. There's activities there for you to enjoy, and all these proceeds go to the junior class, and there'll be a shuttle afterwards to the homecoming game to IHS. And then Friday night we have our homecoming football game against Horse Heads, and our football team is doing pretty well this season. We have 2 wins so far, which is great. And Saturday night in the cafeteria we have our homecoming dance, which is for all grades, and it'll be casual wear. Tickets are being sold this week. Early bird tickets were sold last week, and all these profits will go to the senior class for all their fun things they're going to do this year. And this past Thursday, the 6th, we had our annual high school open house. Parents were navigating the school with their student schedules, getting to meet some of the teachers and having an opportunity to see what kinds of classes their kids are taking. And this was all facilitated by volunteer link crew leaders who took a couple hours out of their busy schedules to help parents out. And thanks to the efforts of leaders and administrators, we had a smoothly run and very successful open house.
My name is Jacob Selkoff. I was elected to be Rep to the Ward last Friday. I'm going to talk a little bit about student council. So the student council officers were working tirelessly through the summer to plan the first meeting, which is going to be this coming Tuesday, which is the 18th. Elections are going to be held in global classes, hopefully before this Monday, and they've been working with the department chair of the social studies classes to coordinate elections and try to make sure that they're held fairly and democratically. They set a few goals for this year. The biggest one is they're trying to create a school-wide Google Classroom, which they want to use to create live uniform updates that are going to keep students informed of what's happening in student council, because they've had a lot of problems with representatives not reporting back to their classes. And they want to use it as a platform for discussion and input from the student body so that we can really understand all students' opinions and make student council as democratic as it can possibly be, and spread the word about what student council has done and how students can be involved. And another goal that they have is to incorporate the board reps and try to get input about what's happening at board meetings and work accordingly in case they have issues with policy or stuff like that.
That's all I have for you.
Excellent. Full docket from IHS and ICSD.
Since last we were here, The LACS Fall Retreat took place in a new location this year from previous years. Fall Retreat is, we take 2 days, and as a whole school we go out and we participate in these great community building and bonding experiences. Yeah, anything more on that?
It's usually thought of as a time for the entire school to come together rather than grades and teachers and such. So we did have our new location this year. We've been sort of searching around for the last few years to find the right spot after the place that both of us had been to since we were in 6th grade kind of didn't work out anymore. But our new sort of hopeful home was out in Brooktondale, where we had a series of outdoor games that we weren't used to, and the entire school ended up a huge amount of students from 6th through staff members who were playing along with us. Ended up playing a game called Gaga Ball, which none of us knew about before, but it was a great time. Students getting muddy and playing a community game that lasted the entire day, both days, became very popular. Some students are looking into getting a hit for our campus on their own. It's become a very serious thing at ACS.
A pit?
Yeah, it's like a weird...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's very weird, but it was very fun. We also had the talent show, which Pierre was one of the MCs for, which is always a good time. It's after the middle schoolers leave on the first day, so the high schoolers came together and the new place had a stage. It's a really nice facility, so we got to do that. That's always fun. Students come together and do pretty weird acts. I ended up singing a song by the Beatles with a group of kids that I was in like a Beatles cover band in when I was in like 6th grade. So it always ends up being a lot of fun.
Interpretive dance to Bach.
Yes, which Pierre did do. So it's always fun. It gets kind of weird. We had the senior fire, which is a tradition for the seniors to go do after everyone else is in bed. It's a chance for the grade to sort of come together for the first time as a whole before all of the craziness begins, and that was fun for both of us. What do you think?
Well, we are also selling pecans. Yes, they are great holiday gifts. Fantastic holiday gifts. Keep them for Valentine's Day. They're terrific. Come on. You just stick some roses into a bag of pecans and you're done. It's good.
Pierre has been single for as long as I've known him.
Still. The pecan sale is a entire school thing where we sell the pecans for collecting fundraising. Yes.
It goes towards spring trips.
Yes.
Which is a good cause, which makes it worth it. So yeah, that's always the big fundraiser. Students get very intense about it. Some of the younger students always sell like hundreds of bags and get crowned like the pecan monarch of the school. It's intense. We also have the Site-Based Council Committee, which does a lot of the sort of technical stuff at our school that not everyone really knows about. But last year I was one of the students, along with a few others, who started a teacher evaluation survey for a place for students to give constructive feedback for teachers anonymously that students have been feeling that they wanted for a while. So it's a survey that if students are feeling like they really want to have a class specifically surveyed, they can request to have that class surveyed, but all teachers will be sure to be surveyed on a certain rotating basis. I think about 2 or 3 years. Each teacher has to be surveyed at some point. And that's a chance for students to respond to our development plan goals, which are, I don't remember them specifically, there's sustainability, diversity, and one other, that students are asked to spend the class period sort of writing about how they feel that teacher improves or doesn't that specific goal. And that's a great way for teachers to get constructive criticism that is often very, very positive. Sometimes it gives teachers the boost that they weren't looking for, or that helps them realize what they're doing that means a lot to students. So that's hopefully up and running, I think, in the next week. It was going steadily last year. Then with the new school year, it took a little time to make sure it was going to work again, but it's a big part of our school that's coming back.
our school's youngest, the 6th graders, wrote up a proposal to deal with some lunch space allocation issues, which passed. So we are currently going through lunch in a system invented by our 6th graders. Just democracy at work.
Very proud of them.
Yes.
And on the other end of that, the senior class, of which we are both part of, every senior is now currently enrolled in a senior seminar project, which happens one day a week. That is a structured time for students to create a resume, write college essays, and then write a graduation essay that all students at ACS have to write to graduate about the reflection of their time at the school. And that's a great support time. We've also had lots of college visits, stuff like that. I'm going to skip on. And on the sort of same note, there's been a lot of talk about alumni outreach this year,
Yes.
which ACS hasn't really done in the past for multiple reasons, one of them just being lack of interest. But in the last few years, students have become increasingly interested about where graduates of the school go and where they end up, because there's a lot of sort of misconceptions about education at LACS, about us not being as serious of a school, not having the same sort of success after graduation as IHS or any other school in the area. So to sort of combat those rumors and those misconceptions, there's been a lot of talk about having alumni come back, about compiling lists of where alumni are. Our graduating class from last year went to very impressive places. Many are working, others are at very impressive colleges and universities across the country. And one of the sort of fun facts that people have been doing is that the PAL classes, which is all of the 6th graders, have been actually writing letters to alum, most of them from the most recent years, who have posted their college addresses mostly on the LACS Facebook page, and the 6th graders take those and write messages to them of help and support and appreciation. Yeah, that's about that.
All right. Great. Thank you both. Board responses, anything right now from anyone?
No, I just wanted to notify you that I'm actually your board rep to Ithaca High School, and when does student council meet normally?
They normally meet once a month, with periods that are going to increase so like if it starts first period, then the next month it would be second period. And then the first meeting is going to be Tuesday, the 18th.
Tuesday the 18th. I will be on my way to China on Tuesday the 18th, but when I get back, I will try to. I'll try to connect if people want to email me at my school board email address. I will try to remember to check it more often than a couple of times a month, and I'll try to. I can't guarantee that I would be at every meeting, but I'll try to get there. And I also serve on the policy committee, so it'd be a good conduit. And Max, thanks for reminding me about the German tea, because I just found the invite to that as well. And as a parent who's hosted 2 official and 1 unofficial German student over the years from this exchange, it's a really great program.
Thanks, Pat. Anyone else? Chris?
I wanted to thank Kobe for coming down. Appreciate the effort and the outreach to us. Any work, to quote Eldred Harris, he always says, to benefit little people is, everything we've signed up for. So thank you for being part of the community and coming out. And I'd love for you to come back and just give us an update, as the school year progresses.
Sure.
And I've got a question for LACS. So what were the changes initiated in the lunchroom schedule?
Oh.
Okay.
By the 6th graders. Go ahead.
Do you want to explain it?
Sure, I think I was the leader for that proposal.
Yes.
We have been having a lot of problems in the last, I think, several years actually, for a very long time, honestly, about just sort of the school not being left in a very clean manner after lunch, because students are confined to just one spot, and teachers try to be very open and welcoming about students using classrooms to eat in if they feel comfortable with that. And that had sort of resulted in a lot of extra work for those who had to deal with it afterwards. So one of our teachers over the summer came up with the idea to say, we're gonna sort of revert to our old ways and say that the cafeteria and the theater, which now has tables set up in it, and 2 of the larger classrooms. I think as many as it needed to be to technically meet the standard amount of space that we needed for all the students to be able to eat in, would be the only places allowed for lunch until students came up with an idea to fix the problem, and then at that point we would be able to sort of go back to our old ways. So the 6th graders came up with a proposal that basically is like a reward system. So every at the end of, I think, the week, a group of people that is yet to be assembled. Thank you. I can't speak today. Is going to meet and decide whether or not the week before has been a week of improvement or not, and if it is, then certain new areas will be opened up to students to be able to eat in those, and if it's not, then we sort of stay where we are or a place is taken away. It's basically a form of incentive to make sure that students are thinking about keeping the space clean. It's a pretty cool thing. Yeah, it's very clever of them.
Very good. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Chris. Thank you, Pat. Do I need to have any explanations about anything? Nope. Not seeing. Move, seconded. All in favor? That's everyone. And everyone.
That's everyone, yes.
Okay. That's everyone, and we are 8 tonight. Thank you, Jennifer. So, Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Ms. James. A couple of announcements and some stories tonight. First, it's always fun to come and recognize national honors, and the ICSD yet again received a national honor this week. If you see Denise Agati, David Brown, anyone associated with our food service program, please say congratulations, as they were awarded the Golden Carrot Award. And I'll read, it was for exceptionally healthy plant-based lunches and outstanding health promotion initiatives. And we've been recognized at the state level quite a few times over the past few years. And this is one of a couple of national awards we've received. And again, we can't say enough about what I feel is the best school lunch program I've ever been a part of or seen. And folks come and call often to ask about how we do it here. So if you see someone, please say thank you and congratulations for another national award for us. Secondly, another announcement, we are about to start our 3rd iteration of community conversations. We've done this about 6 years ago, then 2 years ago, and we're going to do this again. And I've learned this time particularly, it's not easy to schedule these things. You really have to call in a bunch of favors, and thank you, Nicole, for your efforts to help us get one of these scheduled, particularly the West Village one scheduled. I know we're competing with a lot of other community events, and these spaces are at a premium, but thank you to all the folks who have allowed for me and us to come in and hear from our community. Yes, we have some questions we wish to ask. We want to engage in a conversation about what we wish to see our ICSD graduates, what skills we wish for them to have, and what kind of graduates we want to produce. That conversation will go in a lot of different directions, I'm sure. But it's an opportunity for us just to be out in our community and hear from our community members and stakeholders about the Ithaca City School District and engage in a conversation. We're hoping to keep it at just an hour, and we hope to provide childcare at most of these events and some food at most of them as well, too. So please, we're going to be sending this flyer out and promoting it all over the community. We're looking forward to being at Enfield, West Village, Southside Community Center, Brookton Market, GIAC, and Ithaca Community Child Care Center. And this one I'm looking forward to as well. As a pre-K parent for the last 3 years, going to that building every day, and getting stopped often as I'm trying to pick up or take my kids. I'm hoping now to just have an hour where we can just talk about the school district and what it offers and what it's here for as a superintendent, not a parent now. So again, we're trying to get out into our community. We're hoping that folks take the time to come to these special events. So the stories, today I was invited by Dan Brown to be a special guest at the Francisco Raptors annual celebration breakfast this morning. It was attended by 275 folks from throughout Tompkins County and beyond. And it was an amazing event. It really gave everyone in the room a sense of what inclusive environment should be and the power of it and what equity means. But more importantly, I ran into a lot of folks who've had experiences with the Ithaca City School District, and some of them asked me to share with you, the board, some of these stories. The first person, she had graduated from a few years ago. Her daughter went on to Princeton University and has done very well there. And she wanted me to say, she said she's been trying to catch me in a couple of events for the last couple of years, but she took this time to say that her daughter came back and said that the Ithaca City School District prepared her for Princeton. And quite frankly, her first couple of years at Princeton were easier than being in the city school district. And she wanted to thank us for what we've done to prepare her. But most importantly, she wanted us to know that what her daughter appreciated most about her experience here was the diversity that exists in our classrooms. In her high-level courses and all of her courses, from kindergarten, she said throughout high school, she had a diversity of thought, race, religion, you name it. She said, and she appreciated that because she says she was prepared to be at Princeton more so than the young people who were coming from private schools and other places from all over the world. And I hear that often, and I can't. It means much to me, and I hope it means much to you as you work every day to provide that kind of experience. The other piece that I wanted to share with you, we had, at this event, they give out special awards, and the first awards they give out are called the Special Friend Awards. And when walking in, I recognized that there were several of our bus drivers in the room, and I didn't know at the time, not until they walked up on stage, that they were getting the Special Friend Award from their Racker Center today. And as they presented the award, it brought tears to a lot of folks in the room's faces as they told the story about why these two bus drivers particularly were getting this award. And they talked about all of our ICSD transportation and bus drivers and monitors. But these two here, Leroy and Phyllis, there was a parent who came up later and she was a part of a panel discussion. And she talked about her pre-K student who was at the Racker Center, who's now in the City School District. And she talked about, the special needs he had and how they had been working and it had a successful transition into the City School District and had done so much to help him gather some skills. And she began to cry. She said, the best part of her experience at Raptors was her child made new friends. And his first friends were Leroy and Phyllis. And then she went on to give specific examples of how they welcomed him every day. They were the first faces he saw every day. And how welcoming and warm they were to him. And how they knew his IEP, they knew the skills he was working on, and every day he made improvements with those skills. They made a point to recognize those improvements and to encourage him. She mentioned that he had some tough days, like my son has tough days going to school too. He had tough days, and she spoke to how these bus drivers recognized that and helped encourage him every day, before and on the way home. So she told all these stories about our transportation, and it reminded me that, not that I need any reminder, but how special our transportation department is every day before many of us get to work. They've already done exceptional work to meet the needs of our young people. And what I learned today is how inclusive they are with the work that they do. So these two, when they got up there and they spoke, and they shared their stories, and they represented the school district very, very well. Jim Ellis was in the room, I was there, but it was a proud moment for me as the learning leader for this organization, to have folks like this working here in the organization, and to know what they do every day for us. So if you see Leroy and Phyllis, or if you see any bus driver, please share with them how much we appreciate them as well, that they do outstanding work. That's all I have right now.
Outstanding, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, it was a fun day.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have had a good day. But
So far, we got some
very good. That's why we're going to keep moving on, and we will go on to district business, and we're going to talk about merging with Montessori for modified sports one more time. And David Hanna is here.
This is for basketball, in particular for girls basketball. The petition came to us for them to merge with us for the purpose of allowing two girls to at least try out for our team. No way to really know what our numbers are going to be at the modified level for girls. In past years, it's kind of ebbed and flowed. Last year was a bit high, so we did probably 5 or 6 girls I was told were not. It was actually a tryout, so 5 girls did not come or did not make the cut. So these girls would be coming and under the circumstance knowing that they would have to be trying out for the team, right? So we think that there will be enough room for them, but we can't know for sure. So the idea would be that they would be coming with the condition that they're not going to displace any of our athletes.
Two modified basketball.
Two. So last year, I believe it was 38 or so. Maybe 39 that tried out, and we had a higher number. I think we allowed 16 on each of the teams, which is a little higher than what you want. But my coaches kind of told me that that's what they did, just to kind of keep girls in the program so they're not quitting the sport before actually their ability, I guess, to show. So.
I still hear stories from folks that, daughters really love basketball, but then were cut at the modified level and then never played again. But we do we do have 2 modified teams, just to make that clear, 7th and 8th grade, correct? And was not always the case in the past, I don't believe. So, again, an opportunity to try out, but
I'll move approval of the athletic merger with EAC Montessori for the purposes of girls modified basketball.
Second?
Second by Moore. Any other questions, comments for David? Not seeing any. Moved, seconded, all in favor? That's everyone. There you go, David.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you, and I will sign it right now. As we move on to our next item, which is the always important, and unfortunately I missed the audit meeting because I was in a business trip, and it's the first audit meeting, I think, when the audit was presented, that I've missed in a long time, and it's really a very, very important meeting, and Amanda, you're going to talk about that.
Absolutely, yep. We have a few slides just to just simply give a very brief overview of a very lengthy document. Just as a reminder, every year we are required by law to audit our books to make sure that everything that was recorded is accurate, that it's coded properly, that it's in the right lines, and that what we report is actually what the operations are. It's reflective of that. The audit looks at the general fund, which is what the public votes on. It also looks at all of the other operating budgets that we have, special aid funds, which are a lot of our grant programs, the school nutrition services. It looks at our extra class funds, which is the club activities, and all the budgets around that. It produces quite a large document. We have copies of those that are bound in the business office. They are available, but we will also have them publicly online. Just give us a few days, and you can go to the budget area of the district website. And it's in that budget area because, again, I can't stress the importance of taking a look over the course of time of sort of the operations of the school district, where we've come from in terms of revenue, the monies that are coming in, and then where our expenditures have gone. So, with that being said, I always say this is sort of in honor of Jay True, our former board member. He sort of said, why don't we share that with the public? It's really important to sort of take a look at, 10 years prior through current day. So this is the current fiscal year that was audited. This ends on June 30th of 2016. It takes all summer to sort of make sure that everything's accurate to be vetted, and then we come up with a report right around now in October. This will then be submitted, the entire report is submitted to the state after acceptance by the Board of Education. And so, the revenue piece is really the monies that are coming in. Those are real, actualized revenues that we've actually received. Obviously, most folks remember that a lot of the revenue comes from the local taxpayer, and if you look over the course of time, you'll see that spike in that line. 2 years prior, mainly because we went over the tax cap that year. We had some challenges because of the GEA and the state sources, which is our second largest line of revenue coming into the budget. And so we needed to be able to correct for that sort of deficit there. If you take a look back in years 2008, 2009, we were upwards of about 25,000. We just, or 25 million, we just approached that back again in 2013-14, right? So there's a lot of learning here when you take a look at sort of the trends and where the funds are coming from. Also, in years prior, if you take a look, we have some transfers from other funds. Those could be from grants that we had received, additional monies like from the state sources. Those you can see are no longer. They've really decreased over time. And then obviously our miscellaneous revenue, a lot of the money from that comes from a BOCES refund. So when the BOCES budget is presented to us from BOCES, and we also fund the BOCES lines, they themselves build in contingencies that may or may not be used. We ourselves build in contingencies that may or may not be used, contingencies like spots for programs. They might do some administrative line items that they think they might need. monies for overtime costs or settling contracts, and so again, everything sort of shifts there. This year, we came in with more revenue than we had budgeted. So we budgeted real revenue before the fund balance that we put in, just over $113 million. So we brought in more revenue than we had budgeted. One of the major factors in that, where we sort of under budgeted, was in the revenue from state sources, the state aid piece. What we did, and if those board members that were on the board back then, we had done a lot of work about looking around what was really actually coming into the district in state aid. And we had found a trend that was a little bit disturbing. We had found that we were actually, in these years, we were over budgeting our revenue. So we were anticipating more money coming to us than we actually received. And that was also contributing sometimes to some of the deficits that we were facing. And so we did a lot of work in this budgeted year in 15-16 to be able to sort of re-norm that with accuracy, to try to figure out exactly really what was coming into us and to align then the budget with that. What happened this year, obviously, was that we weren't quite sure really what we were going to be getting in terms of our BOCES aid. We had done a lot of work, remember, around trying to grow our partnership with BOCES to be able to get that aid back. It's very difficult to calculate in those years when those programs are solid, so that it contributed. Plus, the state did a lot of work on trying to deliver back to the schools aid in prior years that was owed to us, and so that work was also done, and that's added to the additional aid. So we were under budgeted in terms of revenue for this year, which we now have corrected again going forward. We have about $29 million budgeted for this current fiscal year that will end June 30th. So every year we try to recalibrate that. We also got more revenue in our miscellaneous funds in terms of really that BOCES refund. They did not spend and we did not spend as much as we built into that budget. And so that contributed really to our additional revenue coming in. In terms of the expenditure side, I think, people question us all the time. How do we spend the money? Are we fiscally mindful? Are we good stewards of the taxpayer dollars? And I have to say that I think when you look at audit reports of school districts and you see actually a decrease in funding and then a funding level that goes only about $80,000 more from one year to the next, that's pretty impressive. I think that we're doing the work that needs to be done to continue to keep costs, in control in sort of a situation where we may not be getting a surplus in a year like we did in revenue. And that's a lot of work in education, and those are really a credit to the directors and the principals and everybody who's doing the work daily, not asking for more, but doing with what they have and doing it very, very well. The significant savings in this budget, where we actually we had budgeted a higher level of expenditure, our savings really almost all of it came in from employee benefits. The year prior had a higher rate for employee retirement and for teacher retirement, and again we wanted to make sure that we sort of had enough money in the budget to cover that if there were fluctuations, and we actually came in much lower in terms of our benefits line than we had budgeted. Also, we had, and this is to be spoken to a lot in these lines of where our savings were, a very, very mild year. We had absolutely minimal overtime costs that we had planned for because of winters, because of weather situations that we've had in years past. And we do a lot of work when we do the budget. Angela Jordan this is an absolute credit to her, of always making sure that we have enough money in the budget, looking at prior year expenses to cover those things. When we built this budget, we put in for all that overtime work, and then we didn't need to use it. So things like the water issue were able to be absorbed right here into this, into the spending without really making an impact on the bottom line. And so that's sort of where that kind of interplay occurred. I just want to also talk a little bit about why it's important. So the next slide is going to talk a little bit about when we end the year with a surplus, why that matters to us, why that matters to the Board of Education. I don't want to speak for you, but I know that we've been talking a lot about this. This now, I just want to point out that this flips the year. So instead of going from current year backward in time. You actually start with, about 9 years back and go forward in time. So, because sort of when we look at trend data in terms of building fund balance, that's sort of the way our nature goes. And so I want to just take a look, over the course of time of where we were in 2006, 2007 to current day. And this really represents sort of the fiscal climate that we were under, right? In terms of the state aid being withheld, in terms of the grant funds no longer being available. We had a certain level of operations that we wanted to maintain. And the way to maintain those levels of operation was to dip into our fund balance, which is essentially a savings account for the district. And it's with very specific rules. There are certain savings accounts that you can have that are for very particular purposes, like the capital reserve. We use that specifically to buy our buses. We use that specifically to do health and safety work around the district in terms of repairs. There's a retirement reserve account that we dip into specific for sustaining our costs and any fluctuations around retirement. There's also then the ability to carry forward some savings accounts that don't have a lot of restrictions, and that's either the unallocated or unrestricted fund balance. And that is set, actually, there's a limit to it by the state comptroller. They tell you that you cannot carry forward more than 4% or they will write you up if they audit you. So we haven't had the luxury of taking that risk because we've actually had to dip into that unrestricted fund balance to be able to balance our budget. And you can see over the course of time, if you don't have a long-range fiscal plan and you dip into your fund balance, right, that's not money that easily comes back to you. That's not money that's easily able to be refunded and restored. Because it's just like if you go on that big vacation and you didn't plan for, well, how are we going to get money back in the savings account? It's gone, right? And so we weren't vacationing, we were working. We were sustaining operations. We were doing all the fantastic work that Ithaca is so well known for. But the state wasn't helping us out. We didn't want to go over the tax cap. We wanted to try to hold that firm. And there got to be a tipping point there. And so now we're sort of on that point again where we're trying to intentionally, with real ideas of what should be available to us in our reserves and our fund balance, we're on that sort of path again to try to rebuild this. And we're going to do it very slowly. This year, is going to be an anomaly. We're not going to be able to do this again. But it definitely, if you look at it, I mean, even if you look at the whole chart, we sort of corrected it back to our 2006, 2007 level. Job that I have to do as the district business official and with the board is to sort of determine where is sort of that level of comfort, where is that level of being essential in terms of supporting the operations. One of the major impacts that a fund balance has to us is around our bond rating. Our bond rating is what sort of funders look at when we go out for monies to cover anything that's capital related, even to refund the bonds that we have to try to bring back additional monies at a lower interest rate to the districts. They'll look at that bond rating. We have been actually decreased. Around this time, we went out for some funding and we got decreased a level down. And when we went again to get a bond rating this year, because we were trying to refund bonds to get money back to the district in terms of lowered interest payments, they refused to raise us, even though we were compelling. Because, again, we have to prove that we have fiscal sustainability over the long term versus the short term. So all in all, I mean, I think that the audit report was really great news. I think that it shows that we are mindful of the work that we did to keep operations at a high. We're mindful of not going over the tax cap, keeping expenses down, bringing in revenue when we can. And when all those factors play, you get a year like we had this past year. So.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I'm going to say something harsh, but I'm going to ask a question first. All right, so most people, I think, now understand that a significant amount of our budget for this district comes from our pockets, right? We own property and pay taxes. And a small amount we get from the state through some formulas that we've been trying to decipher.
Yeah, that's right.
But our neighbors are in a reverse position. They're going to get a lot more money from the state because they don't have a tax base that we have. So my question, before I make my harsh comment, is, in those circumstances, in Auburn, in Groton, and other places, were they allowed, to your knowledge, to carry this kind of a savings account? Because they get most of the money?
Percentage of their budget.
So they're allowed also?
Yeah, and in fact, there's no restrictions on reserves. So there are districts, neighbors of ours, that actually, if you look at their reserve dollars, have more reserves than Ithaca, even though our budget might be 3 or 4 times greater than theirs.
Okay, and their reserve money was also tapped into hypothetically to meet the shortfall.
It depends.
Depends on who they were.
That's right, and it depends on their aid
And whether the
ratio.
GEA affected them or not.
That's right.
You see where I'm going with this?
Go ahead.
Public, please understand what this means. It means that we as a district who basically gets most of our support from paying taxpayers, we're penalized when that number goes down because we actually did the right thing and followed the state's rules. Whereas our neighbors might not have had the same impact when they get most of their money from the state. So the fact that we had to tap into all of our savings just to keep things afloat, now we're building back up to it, means that our kids here suffered. They suffered. We know what we had to shave. We know what we had to go through. We know what we lost in terms of professional development, other opportunities, and that's just
$14
it adds
million.
insult to injury.
The GEA was what, 21?
21 million. We spent 14 million.
We spent 14 to fill the gap of our own resources. I mean, we filled 2/3 of the hole, but not the whole.
I wouldn't lump all our neighbors into the deep pockets group. There are many that really they don't have a lot of funding. There's a very small tax base. They have one language offering at the high school, and they do not provide the curriculum and the opportunities that we have here. And they also, if they're going to raise their tax levy 1%, it doesn't even pay for one teacher. So, I mean, I think for many, they're on a tight shoestring, and the principal is also acting in how many different positions they may? 3 or 4.
Driving the bus.
Right. And basically driving the bus along with cleaning out the classrooms. So we have to be careful about thinking others are really well off. I think you need to go downstate to find districts with really, really deep pockets, and that's been our issue, is that funding that we put into our pre-K programs is our funding, but pre-K dollars go downstate, and so when we lose dollars, it goes down to fund pre-K programs in other areas, and we can't fund. We have to cut pre-K classrooms in our district while others are adding with state-funded dollars, and when ours are local dollars. So anyway, it's complicated. But Pat, go ahead.
That's my basic question. Did the state penalize itself?
Oh, we only wish the state could penalize itself.
Or just those of us who are following the rules?
I just wanted to make the point that when the state cut its state aid, the vast majority of school districts around us responded by firing teachers, eliminating teachers, including teachers who had tenure. And that downward curve there, when we were dipping into our fund balance, was us not firing teachers. And that cost a lot. That's how we had to make it up. But I know tenured teachers in almost every district who lost their jobs during that first year.
Right. Brad, go ahead.
We had a good conversation in the audit committee. I thought we went through everything. I did make some comments on footnotes that they've now changed for us, so I know they've gone back through where they are. Was there anything else that you would ask them to look at that they did change or didn't change?
No, it was all prior to any draft that would have gone to you.
Okay, all right.
Somehow, Brad, I'm not surprised you made comments on the footnotes, because that's where all the cool information is. And
because that's really where the financial statement is.
Yeah, exactly.
Footnotes.
So I appreciate that, and I do regret that I could not be there, but did not want to hold up the audit meeting because we needed to vote on this tonight. So,
but the audit committee did recommend acceptance.
And was there some agreement, Brad, on what levels we have to reach again before our bond rating goes up?
That's a good question. Of course, the interesting part of dealing with Standard & Poor's and Moody's is they'll never tell you. It's kind of the Potter Stewart model of, I'll know it when I see it, sort of thing. It's going to have to be higher than where we are today. Now, does it have to go back past where we were at our peak? I would hope not, but we're also a larger budget than we were at that point. So I could certainly make an argument for a larger amount of reserves, but I think we need to continue building them moderately. I
And
would
we
like.
analyze all of those.
What's that?
We analyze every one of
Every
them.
one of them, I know.
To
And
say,
I'd like
this
to
is why we funded this level, and here's our goal, right?
Then the other thing I'll do is remember we're paying debt down at what, a $6-7 million a year pace right now?
I think we have 8 million in there now.
Must be 5.8 or something like that.
Yeah, but that's with
Okay,
interest.
so that's the other thing,
principal.
our debt continues downward now since the bond that was now almost a decade ago is going down. So long answer to, I'm not exactly sure, but I think if we stay on the same curve, for another year or two, the rating should go back up to the AA.
I'm just happy we're a net increase. Revenues are higher than what we spent, so that's a good thing. It for 3 years in a row, it was not so. So that's where we really saw big hits on the fund balance, and it's really nice to be able to turn that, because that allows us to do the contracts that we've done with our unions to really just continue to do what we do in Ithaca. You
The long term.
can't do that when we're constantly in a deficit, and that's so we appreciate the effort.
Oh, yeah, kudos to Angela as well as to you.
She's brilliant, yeah.
No.
Angela Jordan is
Thank
brilliant.
you. I'll move acceptance of the audit as the resolution and the agenda presents it.
Second.
Second by Pat. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That's everyone, and thank Angela again for us, and thank you, Amanda.
Yes, thanks.
And Bob and Karen, we're going to talk about workforce a little bit.
And David Klaus.
Oh, as well, sorry, David.
It's always hard to follow Amanda, especially when there's a good audit for it, so I'll try to make this as good. Our intention obviously is to do some frequent updates to the board over the course of the year, to let you know where we are on our diversity goals. This one is just a first short update. We're going to do 4 items tonight. First, a brief update on who's who in the HR department. There's actually been significant personnel changes over the last year in the personnel department. So we thought a brief update on who does what, where, and when. And then second, we'll touch upon 3 goals, all revolving around recruitment and retention for the HR department for the year. And so without further ado, I'll turn who's who in HR over to David Brown.
So as part of our reorganization, we have human resources on that side over where you normally find Bob, and then my office is over here on this side. In Bob's area, we do now have Dr. Claudette James, our coordinator for recruitment and retention. We're very excited about her joining our team. Gladira Sims is taking over our certified staff. It's IPA and IPDA. That was Tina's position previously. We have Karen Barden, who is working with our paras, and Amy Ruda is our newest member, and she is working with our subs and our receptionist for that part of the department. Over on my side, for our non-instructional staff, human resources non-instruction, we have Pat Pope, who's been with us in the department probably about 10 years now, I think. And we oversee the Employees Association, which is the bus drivers, food service, nurses, facilities, clerical, and our library.
Thanks, Dave. So the 3 goals, all revolving around recruitment and retention for the HR department this year. We felt it was important to focus on recruitment and retention. Dr. Brown's statement about bus drivers really hit home. Not that we haven't thought about that before, but it really, I think, was timely for this presentation, because we have said for years, if we hire the right people and put them in, actually I think the terminology was the right place on the bus, that you'd see significant gains. And I think over the last 7 years, certainly, We've seen that in many, many teaching positions and also a lot of our administrative positions that have turned over. I think we have a lot of the right leaders at the right places on the bus now, so we want to continue that focus. So the 3 goals in no particular order. One is branding, and David Hanna was here, I think, 2 board meetings ago, talking about branding for the athletic department. And for some of the same reasons, it's important for HR department to have its branding and the district brand when we're out trying to recruit. We have been in recruitment fairs where literally there's 100 other districts, some of them whose winter temperatures are 75 degrees. So it's hard to compete, and we want to have a brand that identifies consistently and easily translatable what we're looking for here in ICSD, and translatable across positions. So, it's not just important for our teachers to have cultural responsiveness skills. As Dr. Brown showed today, it's just as important for our bus drivers and administrators and every one of our adults who help educate our kids. So we want to do a significant branding. That's already started. You'll see, I think the next time we come, we'll have a brochure and maybe a pamphlet that we'll be handing out at recruitment fairs. So the second one, obviously, is reaching out. A number of you who were here 3-4 years ago when we had a position dedicated in HR to go outside of the district and reach out to just a variety of places and recruitment fairs. We had a fairly significant success rate of bringing candidates, particularly candidates of color here in the district. And some of them who were hired actually have been very successful, one of which you just promoted to an administrative position last 2 board meetings ago. So we want to replicate that past success with sustainability, and having Dr. James in district or in the department for multiple years will help do that. Importantly, we don't want to just focus on outside the district, and we want to maximize the potential of people we already have on staff. And I'm really quite amazed, quite frankly, in the short period of time Dr. James has been here in this current position. She's reached out to a number of staff, and she has a list of about 35 staff members, some of them who are teacher aides who could be teacher assistants who could be teachers, bus driver who could be in technology. So there's a lot of folks who have unique experiences in our district that have gone a little bit untapped. Now that's not to say we're going to force people to do things that they don't want to do, but we're making the attempt to, again, maximize their potential and get them into the right place in the district. So then the third goal, obviously, is to increase diversity of the staff. We recognize certain realities in ICSD. These numbers I'm going to give you now are very recent nationwide numbers. There is a dilemma nationwide of people of color not entering the teaching profession at a rate anywhere near close enough to keep up with the change in the student population, which I believe just recently, for the first time nationally, there are more students of color as a percentage of students in the classrooms than there are white students. So it's important, again, to diversify our staff and in particular teaching staff. However, nationally, I'm going to read this because I want to be sure I read it correctly. Of all students who major in teacher education, 82% are white, 7% African American, 7% Hispanic, 3% Asian. And in New York State, there has been, sadly, a 40% decrease in people entering the teaching profession in the last 5 years. So that 17% teacher of color that I just read nationally, now there's been no correlation to the 40% drop in entry into the profession in the state, but that could be as low as 10% teachers of color in the state.
Bob, what's your source for this?
One was AmericanProgress.org. I'll have a link.
I didn't get you to take your glasses off.
Yeah, that's okay. There's my old glasses.
We'll send that source
And the other,
out.
I think, was Syracuse Press, whatever the paper is out there, Syracuse.
Post-Standard.
Post-Standard, that's it. So we recognize the difficulty in numbers. Obviously, we said this for a number of years, but we also recognize the importance and will continue, obviously, to work very hard to achieve our diversity goal.
I want to hear it again, a 40% reduction in people entering
college for majoring in education in the last 5 years.
in New York.
In New York.
Anyone.
Of all races.
And do we think that has anything to do with the governor constantly down talking and teaching?
I would support that conclusion, yeah.
Just curious if that was the case.
Because I'm guessing there's a similar decrease in the number of folks going to administrative prep programs as well. So we talk about principal recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think the numbers are rising anywhere, so it's not just our governor. I mean, there are governors that are worse on education than our governor.
Hard to believe it.
So a number of you already received the data that was also sent this evening. I received it in the HR committee, but I just want to briefly, I think more for public dissemination than anything, give you our current numbers. Our employees of color, now that's all employees, for teacher, I'm sorry, let me say this correctly. For teacher ranks, employees of color in the teacher ranks represent 6% of our teachers. Our numbers show some more positivity when we look at teacher aides, teaching assistants, and the administrative staff, which have persons of color at 20%, 19%, and 25% respectively. And as I said before, for those positions in direct educational contact with students, that would be principals, associate principals, teachers, teacher aides, teaching assistants, all those support staff educators, we're at almost 11%. Again, this is not where we want to be, but when we put these numbers together, they were higher than, I think, anecdotally, a number of us thought they would be. So that's our brief update for tonight. More to come as we get things really up and running.
Go ahead.
Quick question.
Sure.
So I'm looking at the chart that was included in Blue Docs. And so you say that at the beginning that it represents self-declared racial identity.
Yeah.
When and how do the employees self-declare?
At time of hire, and it's a check mark. It's Census Bureau designations. And I forgot I think it's about 4% who don't identify any race.
Right.
So we want to try to have a little bit of a program where we reach out to those who have not identified and ask them, I mean, it could be anything from they didn't see it to I don't want it to be done, and we won't pressure them obviously, but just ask them, confidentially if they want to choose again.
Yeah, because I can tell that there's at least one misidentification in this chart that I know of.
Would it help our data?
Yes, it would help your data. Well, I mean, one person, but.
Do we at all keep data on how many people, depending on their race or color, apply for jobs?
We've talked about trying to do that. It's hard to do in the sense that you can't ask the race data on an application, and many folks we never actually see to make any visual representation at all either. So,
Well, at Cornell, when I applied, there's a voluntary box where people have the option to check the box or not.
yeah, we certainly can look into that. I mean, the lawyer side of me is a little worried about that, but the more humane person of me, which I like to think I'm recovering into, I think that could be a definite possibility.
I think there would just be an accountability piece for us and for HR in terms of seeing how many people are applying and how many people are getting the jobs, instead of saying this percentage of people are not entering the workforce when we don't even have the numbers to see how many people are actually applying for the jobs.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Anyone else? Bob and David, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will see you again.
Yes.
Very good.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And we will keep moving along, and we're going to get to the building condition survey, which we have to do periodically, and the BCS was completed and presented, I believe, to the Finance Facilities Committee. And Paul, you're going to walk us through this a little bit.
Ruben will do the tough work.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So for new board members, every 5 years, state mandates that we do a building condition survey. So we look at our buildings throughout the district. And this evening, Hunt is going to be presenting exactly what we found out in our 2015 survey. And this is Ruben Kabithe and also Jeff Robbins from Hunt. And they're going to be giving you a short little excerpt from the report that you have in your Dropbox that I think is somewhere around 600 to 700 pages long.
Right, David, we can do a deep dive into every single building, and we do that. You all do that, and we get reports in the Facilities Committee, but we do have to approve that by the full board and submit it to the state, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And Jeff, you're going to lead us off, perhaps?
Yes. I'll give you a snapshot of what we did. Who's advancing slides?
Jennifer.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, thank you. So, Ruben actually was a project manager for Hunt that led the charge, okay? And we come with a whole team of engineers and architects to review each building. We go into pretty much every room, on roofs and crawl spaces. We look at just about everything we can visually see. So we try to assemble all that information into a document that is useful to you and also meet your state requirement. Okay, so there's the state has a lesser requirement than what the document we produce, but the state's document isn't that awful useful to you in the planning tool. So we kind of expand that so you have something to plan with. This is the dashboard that you see of the tool that we produce. And here on starting from left to right, we have system descriptions by discipline. So each building, each discipline has a description of what you have. So an example that would be a mechanical would describe the boiler system, the age of it, the useful life, and when it was last replaced, that kind of thing. So that goes through all the systems of each building. Then for the recommendations, that's the meat of what we're doing. So for each discipline, there's a series of recommendations. As we visually look at the space, we come up with a list of things that we would recommend that be either fixed, renovated, changed out, end of useful life, that kind of thing. And then the next column there is drawings. So we incorporate drawings for each building in this for easy access. And then you have the miscellaneous column is the reports and also the actual document that was submitted to the state. So it's an online reporting, and once we do that, it kind of goes away. So we make a PDF of it at that time and link it into here so you have exactly what the state has. And then also down in there's some reporting that we can do to come up with different financial reports of the data. And we can prioritize and link it a lot of different ways to come up with those reports. And then also there's the executive summary, which is a key element. Anytime you do a capital project, you have to submit your executive summary of your BCS, okay? So that's something you need access to very readily. Now we'll go into some of the a summary of some of the recommendations, and this is across your district, not necessarily building specific, but this is kind of general snapshot across your district. So first we have the site recommendations, and there's a lot of older pavement. It's not hard to see that, and that's listed in there. Concrete sidewalks, again, you see a lot of cracking and heaving and things that we want to make sure we identify. The stadium running track surface is pretty close to its end of its useful life, and that needs to be planned out. Now, the things in yellow, these are items that you're doing some of this work in your energy performance contract. That's what the EPC stands for. So we just highlighted that some of that work is currently authorized to be completed. And then we have some drainage improvements that are needed. One thing I want to make sure I mention too, generally, if we don't put it in the report and you decide to do a capital project and it's not in there, the state's going to question you on why you're doing it. And it's much harder to do those items. So we try to be as thorough as possible. Some of those things you might look at and say, well, we don't really need to do this right now. That's fine. But if it's not in there, you won't be able to do it typically. So we want to get it in there. Go ahead. So now we have the architectural recommendations, and we also, you see at the top here, health and safety, handicap accessibility is the ADA, and then general items. We break out our recommendations into those and some other categories also, general interior, general exterior, so that if you wanted a report of just all your health and safety items, we could run that report. So we try to group it like this. This is everything combined. So secure entrances, that's been a talk for a long time here. Replacing some corridor doors. This could be because of fire rating issues or just wear and tear. They're just, old kind of things. There's some rated enclosures and stairways and assembly spaces that are, codes change every year practically. And, you can look back at the time things were built, codes have, come a long way. So you're grandfathered in on some of this and you don't have to do it, but if you start doing work in the building, you need to do those things. Some of those things are going to make you do, so we got to make sure we plan for that. Updating toilet rooms and sinks and drinking fountains to be handicap accessible. You have some in your district, but the state's going to require you to do a certain percentage every time you do work until you're 100% accessible. So you imagine there's a lot more to do. Age casework and providing additional storage, those things. Exterior doors and windows, again, the typical useful life is 15 to 20 years. Most of your exterior windows and doors are beyond that time frame. It's not to say they don't last longer, but they start to deteriorate quicker.
But several windows and doors have been covered by the EPC, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see that yellow.
In number of buildings.
Okay, sorry, we missed that on
That's
this.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead. Now mechanically, you're actually in pretty good shape because your past project focused on mechanical items, and now with your EPC, you have a lot of that done. But there are some spaces that need better ventilation, and your kitchen hoods need some work. Again, that's one of those code things that have updated that, you're kind of behind on that. So we want to keep an eye on that whenever we're doing work in the kitchens. And then the electrical and technology we kind of grouped together. Carbon monoxide detectors, that's in progress. That's a new requirement that needs to be done. Interior lighting, some of that's being done under EPC. Stadium lighting, we identify that. It's kind of at the time where you might want to consider replacing that. Fire alarm devices, this is one of those things that if you do work, it's a non-negotiable. You have to bring up that to the current standards. So you have to, they basically require devices in spaces they didn't used to require them. Access door control, again, providing more of this throughout the district. More security surveillance, I know that's been an ongoing discussion on whether to do it and where to do it, but we need to put some of that in here so if you decide to do it, you can. And clock systems, that's a notorious thing in districts, is trying to get universal time across the district is important.
There's different time zones, Jeff.
It's amazing how that works, but yes, there's ways to make it universal.
Can't believe.
And some of that's covered, will be covered by our smart allocations also.
Right, yeah. Okay. Now, these are, again, a first pass at some priority summaries. So this is, we break it down in a 5-year plan, and that's if you did everything. Obviously, you're not going to do everything. You don't have a plan to do everything, but by the state, you got to put it together some kind of a 5-year plan. So this one is the priority ones, and as it crosses each building, you see the totals there. The next slide is year 2. You see some priority 1s and 2s. And then we did this for each year through year 5, and you can kind of click through these. And that's really the end of our presentation. And we can answer any questions or go any deeper if you'd like.
Go ahead.
I do have a question. Under health and safety, I know that some of the state changes came into place surrounding lead abatement and things like that.
Yep.
I didn't see that in there. Did I miss that?
We did do a lead report. There's a lead report there, and basically for lead materials, okay, I know there's been a lot of talk about lead and water. What we're looking at is lead in paint or other materials. Basically, as long as everything stays in good repair, it can be there. But if you're going to do work and you're going to do any demolition work, and you need to test the paint or test, sometimes it could be on a glazed surface.
I mean in plumbing.
In plumbing, there is a brand new requirement that came out that the state put out. I think it was just like this past week. Was that?
Well, deadline was September 30th for elementary schools, which we met, and then the secondary schools are by October 31st, and that's just to test. All schools now in New York State have to test, which we were well in advance of.
But my question is this: in order to get the state aid back for any things that we do, it has to be in that building conditions survey. Was the lead, the fact that we're going to potentially have to do things with the plumbing included in that building conditions survey?
The lead testing costs?
No, not the lead testing, anything with the pipes.
So,
solder.
if I may, what she's asking is if we were to decide, or if the Board of Education were to decide that we were going to repipe a building, like from the inside out, or would that be covered here, and will the state say no because it's not in your BCS? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my question.
I can answer that. They will absolutely cover it because that's such a hot button, and they know that you're doing testing along the way and trying to determine that scope. This walkthrough was done a year ago. Okay, so you can imagine that this is a visual inspection. We're not going to be able to know those results from a visual inspection, but if you've done testing and the state institutes a requirement, they're going to absolutely support a project that takes care of that. I have a full confidence of that.
And if I might, the state is now coming down, after we do all this testing in September and October, they're going to come down with more regulations about if this, then what. And they haven't done that yet.
Okay.
So we have to do this report every 5 years, correct?
That's correct.
I think the first time I heard it, I was too new to ask the question I'm going to ask now, because I'm trying to understand New York State every day. So this report that you put together, it seems like you're speaking to how we are engineering a public space, but we're a learning organization, so I didn't see or read anything that speaks to these spaces we're engineering to meet the needs of learners. I mean, yes, the boilers are going to be in place, and surveillance systems, and bathrooms, I get all that. But I didn't see anything about paint colors, furniture, fixture, lighting, things that we know. I mean, we have 15 years of research now to speak to how that increases student achievement. I'm looking to you as the expert, and you're engineers. So should I be having that conversation with the architects, the state, about that being included in this report, or am I just missing something?
No, let me respond to that. Is essentially this is an evaluation of your existing actual condition. If you have a desire to make a change in your district from an educational purpose, you're free to do that, and it doesn't have to be in this report.
So we're required to do this report for 5 years, once every 5 years, pay for it, but it has no educational purpose whatsoever.
It's about physical nature of the buildings. If you choose, if you want to do an educational study or space review educationally, they actually directly will not fund that under this umbrella.
So maybe there's a bigger disconnect for me then.
Yeah.
So do you guys, who should I speak to? Who should we lobby to speak to just ask why isn't this connected to engineering learning spaces? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or can we ask you guys? Should I?
We can absolutely do it. We do it all the time. Yeah. But it's not the purpose of this particular exercise, if I will.
I think this is an exercise to try to make sure that, I'm not speaking for the state, Dr. Brown. But I think you're aware of districts where the roofs leak and the heat doesn't work in the wintertime and mold, and I think you're looking at a very unhealthy learning space. They would love to be able to be in the position of deciding what color is best for learning in a space. I think they're trying to, is the basic safety of that room okay? Is it safe for a child to be in that building? And I think this BCS is something that is required by districts, and also it is also a very good way for districts over time to try to prioritize and come to a conclusion about what do we need to address within our buildings, and we don't always have to wait 40 years and to go out and spend and borrow $98 million to try to fix everything at once. And what I think we would like to do in the district is get to the point where, make sure folks understand that we always have some debt that we're paying off, and so perhaps in addition to the summer capital projects that we should be doing and do now within the district, that there may be a time, from time to time, using the BCS, that we need to go in and go out and borrow some money to do some X and Y big projects throughout the district to address some of that basic needs of that building before it starts leaking, before the heat doesn't work and all that.
And absolutely, if that was an initiative of the district to do a project or to, most districts we work with, we go through an educational space planning review to just see, if you want to, create a STEM suite, okay, or if you want to do a long distance learning space or just a collaborative learning space or something like that, and kind of plan that out in conjunction with how you could actually achieve it and build it. So it's just under a different umbrella than this exercise. That's all.
Sorry, I have another question, because I looked at some of this stuff before, and I was pretty overwhelmed by the magnitude of the costs attached to everything. So I had two questions. One is, how do you come up with these numbers? Is it based on our materials? So that's one. How do you how are you assigning that quantity? And secondly, even though this is a summary and these are our priorities, it's still priorities that are huge. It's a very large number.
Yeah.
What are the priorities of the priorities? Of these things, what are the top three?
Well, I guess what I would say in that case is we would want to run a report of just the health and safety. Right?
Oh,
if you just did the health and safety items, that would give you the priority of the priorities.
Okay.
I don't have that number in my back pocket right now. And as far as how we come up with the estimates, 10 years ago, this was done in conjunction with a construction manager. Okay? And they did the estimating at that time. Frankly, not 10 years ago.
2007.
5 years. It would have been 2010. So 6 years ago. And, at that time, most of these items, or a lot of them, have carried through. A lot of these items nothing's really been done in that last 6 years. I won't say nothing, but a good chunk of them remain the same. And we just applied an inflationary rate to it. Okay? And then we run it through a filter of experience. We're doing bids. Every month we have projects that are being bid, and we kind of see what some of these costs are, and we, include that knowledge into the numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Go ahead. As a student at IHS, talking with my fellow peers and other people in the building, whether it's legitimate or not, people have concerns about the infrastructure of their school and their building, and so I'm wondering, is this report going to be available to students and people in the community? Sure. I guess that's more of a question for the board than...
Yeah. It's a public document. It's supplied to the state, so it's a public document. Yep. And available, how?
We can post it.
We can do a presentation.
Amanda, say it aloud.
I said we would be happy to do a presentation if you'd like. You know, if there's a way to do, because I think sometimes reading the document, but then talking to somebody who sort of walked through it, or, you know, researched it, or kind of, you know, been able to sit through all of the subcommittee meetings where we kind of delved in really deeply. I think that, to me, would be the best way for students to have comfort. We've done things like that at LACS around Smart Bond. It worked really well. We can do the same thing, you know, around the building condition survey at IHS. And we can run reports that focus on a particular building. You know, that's the glory of having a database, right? Like you can filter it any way that you want to.
Perhaps because the nature of high school is that some things are kind of run through the rumor mill, right? And so that I think there's some discrepancy between facts and what current high school students believe about certain issues, like the lead issue and whatnot. So I think having perhaps a public appearance would be very
that wouldn't be our intention to debunk, but that might be the side factor of it, right?
Absolutely.
But it might be helpful for the students to learn how much money has been put into Ithaca High School and the improvements that have been done, perhaps not this past year, but several years ago, and you should have seen it before. But anyway, so there's, and throughout the district, what has been done, and we're 10 years out from our 2007 essentially bond referendum, and $98 million of investment that the community put into all the buildings in the district. And so, but 10 years is passed, and so people forget what Boynton used to look like. And but it's always okay. What's next? And we always have to look forward, and that's what this hopefully helps us have those conversations. Go ahead.
Quick question: when you say Ann asked, can you get the priority of the priority, and you said health and safety, would that cover basic ADA compliance? I'm a kid in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And my capacity to use a bathroom is not on your list.
Well, I appreciate that, because when I said that,
for kids,
I should have said both, ADA and health and safety. Essentially, anytime you do a project, the state's expecting you to spend 10% of that on ADA items. Okay? So, you know, it doesn't mean you have to do 100% of the items we identified, but you can prioritize and see where the greatest need is, for sure.
And a few of these things, so Amanda just mentioned the Smart Bond, so a few of these things are in our proposal for the Smart Bond money. Yeah. And have you heard recently about where we stand on?
It's expedited.
It's expedited. That's right.
That's what the governor said.
I just looked it up, actually, and you're in the final stage prior to going to the review board. But the review board...
Final stage before we get
so
reviewed.
So this 60-day review is taking how long now?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But the review board is currently meeting, and I don't think they have your plan in their packet, from what I could tell. So
we'll be in the next batch,
which is probably a month or two away. But you could start, you know, if there's design work associated with that, you can start that in anticipation of approval, because if you have work that has to be gone through facilities planning, that generally takes 5 months.
We pretty much have it done, right? Yeah.
Yes, just remember, our proposal was around security, and it's really around the key fob systems and all of the entryways, converting a lot of the buildings that had, accessibility from the outdoors into the building, switching out those key locking mechanisms. And I think that was really the proposal.
And some cameras.
Cameras only on the exterior of the
exterior.
building. Yep. So there will be wiring, right, but there won't be construction. Like, we're not redoing a front entryway at this moment in time.
Right, but wiring constitutes construction. So it has to still, after you have your investment plan approved, it has to be submitted to the state for a building permit. That's the part I was talking about. So there's still an exercise there to...
so we may not get this done next summer. It may this could very well be summer of 18.
I think it's a conversation we should have to see. There's a way to get it done next summer, but we got to act right away. You know, there's some things we got to do right away. Well, we might be able to jump ahead. That's what I'm kind of getting at, is if that's your priority, there's a way we can circumvent the system and help you make that happen.
That's an awful lot to come.
Yeah, it's if it involves an envelope, I don't want to know.
I probably should have said circumvent, basically.
Yes.
That was good.
It's on already?
Take a deduction.
What state employee do we have to reach out to? Well,
You just do two processes in tandem. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
yeah, sure, Jeff, we understand. Wink, wink, yeah, we got it, yeah. And we do want to point out, the Smart Bond is not the energy performance contract, so in addition to that 98 million that we put in the buildings, now we're putting 10 million or so in energy performance contract, and another investment with the Smart Bond, and so there's stuff going on in the buildings all the time, and Paul's crew, what you all do in the summertime and throughout the year, so there's a constant effort to try to keep the lights on and the building and the walls up, I guess, right?
And it looks like those stairs at ACS are almost done. So close.
Just in time for the snow wrap.
But as you review the building condition survey, if you have any questions, please let me know, let Paul know, and we can, speak to Hunt about those, because it's a big document.
Anything else before we do have to go to accept, correct? Anything else? All in favor? We did have, it was forwarded and seconded, right?
No.
Can we do it?
I'll move acceptance.
Second.
Can we, Pat? I thought we did that.
So we need to.
Jennifer says no. If Jennifer says no, then it is no. Now we're voting for real to accept the BCS. That's everyone.
Brad made the motion, is that right?
Yes.
Pat seconded.
All righty, good. But Chris was not in the room during the vote. All right. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you. We'll let you go. And we have a few quick policies to get through, correct?
With policies, item 12, these are all second readings.
You're all around the clock.
I would like it to be quick, but that is up to the will of the board. So these are all second readings. I move policy 4531.1, domestic field trips, for a second reading and adoption.
Second.
Second by Moira. Any material changes from before?
No changes, as I recall. This is the same policy that we looked at 2 weeks ago. Actually, there are no changes to any of these policies, so I don't know.
We'll get that question out of the way. Fine.
If you want to review them, or if you have all had time to review them over the past 2 weeks.
It's up to the board to ask questions if they have anything. Anyone? If not, then there is nothing to add.
There's nothing to add.
And your motion was seconded by Moira, right, Jennifer?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. We can vote. All in favor? That is everyone.
Excellent. I move policy 9820.2, terms and conditions of employment for managerial employees, for a second reading and adoption.
Second.
Second by Brad.
And again, just a reminder that for this and the following policy, the only change was to reflect the language of the new health insurance.
Correct. Questions? Anything? Are we good? All in favor? That is everyone.
I move policy 9820.3, terms and conditions of employment for confidential employees, for a second reading and adoption.
Second.
Pat's on a roll. All right.
Who's open a second?
Chris.
I didn't want to do that, Chelsea.
We're passing the seconds around. Pat, anything we good?
No changes, exactly the same as the policy we just voted to adopt.
Very good. Appreciate the work of the policy committee on that. Anyone? All in favor? That is everyone.
I'd like to note the adoption of 3 policies in record time.
Wait a minute, aren't there more, Pat? I mean, is that it?
That's all that's on today. That's all that's on tonight. More are coming.
I was assuming we were going to slug through more. I mean, so anything else, Pat, you want to talk about, or are you good? Or
We're launching we're trying to wrap up the 4,000 policies. We're pretty excited about that. Yeah.
And
we
and
are.
there is no policy committee meeting next week.
There is no policy committee meeting on October 18th because Sean won't be back and I'm leaving.
On a trip to be named later somewhere, okay. Yeah.
4 cities in China. I'll be working furiously.
I'm leaving tomorrow for Istanbul and then Israel. But I'll be back for the next board meeting.
I will not. And so there will be no policies on the next board meeting agenda since there are none to be generated in committee next week.
Duly noted.
Once again, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're not having a meeting.
But I appreciate you all being adventurous and traveling about the world. But that's really, and Pat, you've been there before, and where this is familiar ground. And
Yes.
so have good trips, both of you.
Thank you. 2 new cities for me, Hefei and Jilin, which I have not visited.
Great. Anything else? The upcoming meetings are listed there for your benefit for committees next Tuesday. Next Tuesday? Right. For those who want to stop by Tuesday, it's multiple committee meetings at once. You good, Chris? Are you going to call it?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Without objection. Thank you all.
Yes.